Ed.
Okay, welcome to the Gull Lake Trail Steering Committee, November 10th meeting. We're missing Tessa and Mark.
Tessa's coming, but she said she'd be
Yeah,
about
be a little
15 minutes
late.
late.
Yep.
Right. Well, we can go over,
Anything of less importance to talk
yeah,
about first?
talk about first.
Well, let's
before
start-
we-
We need to approve the amended agenda to start at 4
So,
PM.
the attached to the agenda is the July 14th minutes, and the reason they're attached there is because that's the last time we met.
Yeah.
Okay, so I would entertain any additions or corrections to the minutes as presented.
I'll move to approve.
Okay, second,
I'll second.
okay. Comments? Hearing none? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carried. Okay, let's just have some open discussion here until Tessa gets here.
Yeah,
So we were talking about the two property owners that Jesse had been involved with. So,
so let me backtrack a couple bit. So you guys have been receiving some notes, just kind of a written summary from August, September, and October.
right,
So I would like to meet here today. As I've mentioned, I do not have updated cost estimates. There's nothing specific to show you guys. But I wanted to kind of regroup in preparation for hopefully what's to come over the next couple of months, when we get closer to getting that cost estimate and bidding the project. So
Cost estimates for the larger project, is that what you're referring to?
yes, so
Oh,
the
okay.
engineers, as they put together the plan set, are going to put together a cost estimate to coincide with that. So we're gonna hopefully use some of that to have a more educated discussion in terms of grants and funding, how we want to approach that with Lakeshore, and going forward with that. So over the last few months, obviously progress has been slow, but progress. Do you guys have any questions about what I've written in those updates in terms of the
Yes.
archaeological?
Yes, I do.
Okay, because I want to understand what questions you guys have so we can all get caught up to speed. And then moving forward, if there's things that I need to gather answers on, so I can come back hopefully at our next meeting with some good answers for you guys. So we're all up to speed and ready as the project gets to where we're all hoping it gets to very quickly. So
Okay, in the October update that you gave us. Under engineering update, that's A. Be the 1, 2, 3, the fourth bullet point. You've indicated after completion, acceptance of the route change design, complete construction documents will be sent to all agencies for final review. So my question is, this was October, have we got any updates on?
They
final
are,
review?
when we met with the engineer, so every month Lakeshore and Nisswa meet with the engineers. Usually it's Joe. They are near completion with the plan set. They had some more work to do down Hazelwood, for the signage. That was the one thing that was not fully complete. So they are very close to having the final plan set done. And then at that point, it will be sent out to the DNR, all the utilities and everyone else to review.
Okay, that's correct. That's Crow Wing. I'm talking about the counties.
The
Okay,
counties did a preliminary review. So they did a review in June. We sent back
Yep.
in July. They've addressed those comments and that preliminary review is complete.
Is complete, okay,
And then it
all right.
went to the DNR.
No, they do not want it until it's, the full plan set is complete. So they did not want any preliminary.
Yeah, and then the big question will be, how long will they take? Because they tend to, the wheels grind very slowly there.
Yep. I believe I believe it's around 60 days.
I'd be surprised if you got it. in
60 days is there, so there is a timeline?
I want to
Is there a
say,
Timeline?
I want for 60 days is kind of sticking out to me. But I don't know if that's for all agencies across the board.
Well, it'd be kind of nice to keep the fire under them to make sure if there is a 60-day timeline, they hopefully will honor that. Okay, so your next bullet point then is about the two property owners. So maybe you, now that we're all.
Yeah.
Explain
So
that.
Joe and I met, two property owners reached out to us along Hazelwood Drive. They wanted to understand what the design and how it was going to impact their property. So Joe and I met with at different occasions, met with these property owners to hear out what their preferred designs were. After those meetings, Joe brought it back to Woodseth. They resurveyed, they got all the designs done, and they made a cost estimate that they have given to myself and Jenny. And we have meetings set up with each property owner to discuss their preferred design, other options as well, and then what those costs are. So they will be meeting with myself and Jenny. We're all scheduled to meet next Monday. So they will get those designs, the cost estimate. They have not seen those. They were just talking out loud with the engineer, and then the engineer went back, designed it, and got the cost estimate. And so we will review that on Monday.
Well, I have a question about this. I understand we need to make the best effort to satisfy these property owners along Hazelwood. But in one case, they put a structure in, I believe, without a variance. I don't know about the second one. Why are we paying so much extra money if they did not comply with county or city ordinances to start with?
So yeah, I don't want to get too far into it because, again, we have not had these dialogues with the property owners. So it is a rightful place to start is with them. And those are all, the funding is the main topic of discussion on Monday. And that's why Jenny and myself will be sitting in with it, because I was there during those design brainstormings with the engineer, and then obviously Jenny as the city administrator and the financial components. And
Okay, Bill?
Okay, so the one property is the one that has the wall and steps that we're dealing with, which would be, okay, thinking in terms of Hazelwood and used to be called the Clark Lake Connection. I don't know what they've got on it now. So that one is south of that. It's like actually the first residential property south of that, I think. There's
We're talking about Burns's place?
yeah, it'd be Bruce,
Second or
yeah.
third, I believe.
second,
The other one that is on the corner on the north side, the
Yeah,
north
thanks.
would be the northeast quadrant of that same intersection. And he basically had a driveway issue, if I remember. Yeah, he's got
A
a
U-shaped
got a
driveway.
he's got two driveways that come in off of Hazelwood. One is quite steep and the other is more gradual.
correct.
What is the proposed solution for that property?
Again, I want to talk to them first, and work through the details with them.
Well, I'm sure the engineer laid it out.
Yeah,
How it was going to be
the
designed.
engineers talked about several options. We talked about several options while we were on site and what may or may not be possible, at least from an engineering standpoint. The next step is to talk about what is possible or not possible from the financial standpoint.
Okay,
But then there should be there's a third property that I was referring to that's down close to Copper Creek. It'd be 2 doors down from Copper Creek. They have a big parking area right off of Hazelwood.
Yep,
Have they contacted
they have
you?
not contacted us.
So,
and not wanting to speak with the engine. They have not contacted us requesting to speak with the engineer or to see any designs.
And then there was another one, a woman that came into the public hearings a couple years ago that, the house is always under construction, was never finished.
I think maybe she moved.
Did she move?
yeah.
She was gonna sue everybody and I don't,
Yeah.
I don't know what the outcome of that's been.
He felt the right of way was her property, right?
Oh, yeah, she thought she
Mowed it.
owned everything right
Yeah.
out to the middle of the street, actually. But, obviously there, Hazelwood does have some right of way. I think,
Yeah.
so.
Okay, well, let's keep moving along here. Amber, I'm assuming we'll be updated once on those two property owners, once you meet with them and hopefully get things resolved and
Mhm.
hopefully we're not too far off budget. Okay, the next bullet point then is the post office relocating the mailboxes. So has that been resolved?
In progress. I think we have finally found the correct person we need to be speaking with. And so I drove the route and I wrote down every mailbox and provided them as best I could newspapers and mailboxes. So they had an understanding of which would be impacted by it. So both myself and Joe have reached out and I think we finally got the correct person. So it has not been resolved, but I think we are making progress. Slow progress.
Most of those mailboxes were relocated when they
Yeah.
paved
Yeah.
Hazelwood.
Yes.
So now we're gonna do it again. Okay. So under the old business, no additional comments on grants and land acquisition? Nothing updated?
Again, I did not get those updated cost estimates for the trail. I think having that information and then obviously we're seeing when or what bids come back at. But kind of having that estimate, I think will give us a better idea of how much, when, things like that, what the shortfall is and how we want to kind of approach it. So yeah, I think, some things to consider. I know the grant cycles for this year are coming up springtime. Nisswa and Lakeshore, we've had a few discussions over the past couple of months, just in funding and kind of how we feel about it and how we maybe want to go. It's hard to say without concrete numbers. Trying to figure out, when to reapply. In my notes, Jenny and I and Terry have all talked and we think that it's important for us to use the money we already have and see what that gets us, build what we can. And then I've also been in contact with Renee Madsen and they're aware of just kind of where we're at on the project. Renee Madsen is in charge of the Greater Minnesota Regional Parks and Trails.
Yeah, it's a legacy fund.
The legacy fund, which gave us the 2.4 million. So I have to do annual grant summaries. And so talked with her and so she's updated and if there is going to be any changes to the plan, if we need to extend the grant, we need to contact her right away. So we're kind of hopefully going to get these numbers soon so we can really have some solid information to strategize. Could be advantageous of us to reflect on the process and get this completed before trying to go for more grants again. So keeping that in mind in terms of, let's finish out this one.
But keep in mind that you apply one year, but you don't get the the money until the legislature approves it
That's
the
right.
following
Correct.
year. So there's quite a lag time.
There
Yep.
is, especially, I was looking at that. You're absolutely right on the legacy grant. And if we want to apply for the LCCMR grant, has a different timeline,
Yep.
as you know, Paula.
But
Uh,
it's still anything applied for now in 2023, early 2023 will not be
Till 20.
funded until 2024 when the
Right.
legislature, and then it won't be any money until July 1st of 2024.
So question on that, then, if we were to have out-of-pocket expenses to the city's reserve funds per se,
Yeah.
would that grant money, by all laws applicable, would that be able to then replenish that? Specific
No,
fund.
because you
It
can't.
has to be expensed once it's received.
You can't use the money until after it's appropriated, and the fiscal year starts on July 1st. Anything that's done before July 1st of when the money's appropriated does not qualify for reimbursement
Interesting.
on any legacy grants.
Yeah, so I think this obviously is gonna be a continuing discussion in terms of timing. Cause those are large, grants. Both of the cities need to be involved in terms of if they need to commit funds, where the cities are sitting. Nisswa has big projects going on with the roundabout, the construction of the trail, and then, they have
Very
we're
similar.
going through our parks master plan and, consideration for all of these different projects. And so the city council is gonna have to weigh in on how much, if and when funds can be allocated for matching dollars, things like that. Also thinking Lakeshore, not Lakeshore, how we want to approach those things. So yeah, it's very hard to speak to without seeing kind of the updated cost to try and gauge what we might have to put in for funding.
Well, you still got a few months. The
Yes.
LCCMR grants aren't due until March, I
April,
think. I don't know.
beginning of
I haven't
April.
looked at the RFP for those.
It's in spring and
It's
that's,
spring,
and
it's
the
fine.
legacy is due in April, I think, the first week in April.
Yeah, I want to say like April and May, they're,
So
Yeah.
I think, in my opinion, we should put in for another grant. They can say no, but what if they say yes? So that we're prepared to have the money 2 years from now.
Well, okay, so we're gonna do the bidding, hopefully in the wintertime in January. It'll be disastrous if if we then now have another delay in bidding, right? If winter won't work. For bidding. I mean.
Like
we've
at all
already
this
had a
winter?
couple Delays. You're now saying bidding will take place in January.
that's the last estimate I was given, yes.
What happened?
What's the holdup? Because we've set this deadline back and back and back. What's causing this?
Probably layers of things. Obviously the burial mounds, archaeological surveys in Lakeshore, that was a pretty significant delay in trying to hear back any sort of concrete information on how far we need to be from those sites. And so at the end of the day, we just picked the furthest out option and decided to keep the project moving forward.
And
So
we,
that was in June, that kind of all started.
didn't we have a deadline originally that there was like October, November, and now we're moving it back again to January?
Yep, they
is this a
were
staffing
unable
issue?
to get, part of it is they were unable to get specific concrete information about how to design that space around the sites, the archaeological sites. As to other reasons, I don't know, but that was a major one.
Do they have to wait for the DNR's approval of the design before they can bid it? I mean, couldn't they bid it and
I
then they can
will-
revise it when they get that approval?
I will double check. My guess is that we need those approvals
and-
before bidding, but
And also that modification will be a boardwalk and not asphalt, is that correct?
Yeah, it has to go out further north on the Goldman property, which starts getting closer to wetland.
Okay, so it'll be the same, so it will remain a 10-foot boardwalk? Inline skaters are not gonna like that.
Well, it might not be too
Roller
bad.
skaters.
Depends on how
Especially
you
when the
build
water's
boardwalk.
wet.
Amber, what's the date of the last proposal for this project that it was received?
For the estimate on construction.
Yeah.
The cost,
Yeah,
I don't have it. I think it was right around 3.6 million,
when was that proposal received?
January 2022.
Are we talking about this document?
Yeah, that one.
This,
What does that say on there? Am I close? 3.6?
updated 7/7/22. Does that sound right?
Yep. But the
Do you have that,
numbers,
Jesse?
So in July,
July.
well, the numbers at the top section were given in January 5th, 2022. Only the bottom section down there was
Yep.
updated, so that whole spreadsheet was updated July. But the top numbers where it has a construction estimate
Yeah,
was,
Yes.
is from January 2022. Am I correct in saying around 3.6 million, Roger? I'm going off the top of
do
my
you
head.
have that you may not have that document.
I don't believe
but
so.
sure
I can
Amber's
get that
got
to
it,
you,
too.
Jesse. if You want it? Hopefully, I'm gonna be able to update that very quickly here. That was my hope.
Have the landowners along Lower Roy Lake Road where you need to acquire easements, have they been given a appraisal amount?
It was mailed to them at the beginning of November. And so they should, I think there's a handful of them that have received them. I've heard of one that has not received theirs yet. And we have a meeting scheduled with one on Monday. Monday is gonna be a big day.
That is.
I know the co-fan, Grandview got theirs.
Okay, perfect. Mark, we're just kind of going over any questions over the last couple of months, the notes, things like that.
So. What's gonna come in January is going to be an estimate, a budget, or is it going to be a bid?
Hopefully, we are getting updated cost estimate here. I'm hopeful by our December, but it's a holiday and it's quickly approaching. They're very close. When we met last week, they're very close to completing the plan set. And then that needs to be sent out for review. So if that takes 60 days, that gets us, January, maybe timing puts us to February. I'm just kind of spitballing there on that one. Kind of contingent upon how quickly we get the reviews done and back, and to Paula's question of if we can bid it before the reviews are fully back. So yes, the hope is that we get a cost estimate here within the next couple of weeks, and then that would allow us to bid. Last time Joe said, last estimate he had was January still.
I think it'd be very rare, excuse me, very rare to go to bid without an engineer's estimate. Because the city council has nothing to compare
Yep,
the bids,
and that's what
what the engineer estimates as being reasonable.
they said that that's what they kind of do is they put the entire plan together and the full plan set and they do the cost estimate. And so I'm assuming once we have that cost estimate, that means the plans are done. We were gonna schedule a meeting with Lakeshore at that time. If it was before our scheduled December meeting.
So. Just because of what's been happening lately, and what I mean by that is with construction. I mean, I was just listening on the way here, the complete and total decimation the building industry. Right now, I mean, I was talking to a banker. Last week, he said his commercial loan portfolio a year ago was 66, 67. And today it's 7 applications. It was 67 a year ago. That there are no building permits being issued. So if we, if they get a little aggressive on who they send this bid packet to, we actually might get better pricing than we think, because about the time for excavators and all that, next spring is gonna be, people are gonna be struggling for work. And which is, if this was a year ago, I would say we would be screwed because we won't get any bidders. Or we'll only get their top, a top price saying, we'll slide you in, but you gotta pay for it. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
The thing you're gonna probably, there's gonna be, I think, through the winter, you're gonna see contractors that are very hungry at the beginning of winter because they're gonna be trying to line up work for next year.
And drop markup and
And
any overhead
they
rates.
want jobs, but once they get a few, then suddenly they're gonna get picky.
Could be, there's a fine line there. We
Oh,
could
yeah.
end up on either side of the line.
Yeah, we should,
I mean-
hopefully we won't get out into late spring for bidding.
Oh, I mean-
That could be.
That could be,
problem.
that could be trouble, or it could be. I mean, I don't know. It's so brutal in the industry. I mean, the northern suburbs right now of Minneapolis, we're seeing landscapers, drywallers, painters, everybody's coming here because there's some work here. And we're seeing an unprecedented number of people willing to travel to Brainerd already. And they work 410s and they go back home.
Yeah.
Or they work, and some are saying they work 312s and they'll go back home.
On the other side of the coin, you've got this huge infrastructure money that's starting to break loose. It's going to be hitting
If,
highway and heavy construction and, the asphalt pavers. the
If they can
concrete
actually-
people.
but just remember, there's no such thing as shovel ready. It's gonna take them a while.
Yeah,
It's
no,
gonna-
it's coming fast though, is the thing.
yeah,
Well, that's
Yeah.
good news. That's gotta be
It's
good.
it's weird news is what it is. It's
Yeah.
potentially-
Encouraging news.
It's a little more encouraging than it would have been. I
Yeah.
think it's gonna be
Years
better
ago.
this spring than last spring.
Right.
Yeah.
But then the whole thing will depend on oil prices too. So,
But,
Anyway.
there's some things out of our control, the friggin' engineer, DNR, for keeping the ball rolling here. And so we need that bidding process to start.
Mhm.
So that if we need more money, we can need to get some more grant applications in the spring.
What's the status of the 2 federal grants we have? Are they, either one of those expiring?
They both expired June 30th, 2023. We are in extension.
2023.
Yep, we are
Extension.
in an extension for the federal grant already, and the regional cannot be extended.
Okay.
The regional cannot be extended. Legacy, no,
There's
you're not
there's
talking
no
about
clauses
legacy.
in there that would give us any flexibility.
Finding
This- Finding an Indian burial mound is almost like
Yeah,
unforeseen,
well,
it's a force majeure type effect. Why not ask?
yeah, if we get to a point where, if we can start and. Because we already constructed that portion at the public water access. So we can likely put that cost towards that grant. And then any of those first invoices that roll through for construction, can put it towards that one too, so. But yes, if we are really getting to a crunch time, then, we might have to go with some of those.
So I have a question on line B of number 5, same line we're looking under. To date, we have 174,000 in reimbursable expenses. The expenses are coming out of Nisswa's general fund and will be submitted for reimbursement.
Correct.
So based off the question I asked earlier, if we were to, I'm assuming this 174,000 is coming from grant money. Is that right?
Yeah, we'll be reimbursed by grant money, yes.
It's been okayed.
They
So-
can only submit so many times with this particular grant, which is
Crazy.
different than the other legacy grants. You could submit whenever you want, as often as you want. This, yeah, these will be covered, but they have to kind of gang up the funds, don't you? It's because you can only submit reimbursement so many
Yeah.
times.
Hmm.
Like 4? Is it 4? That's crazy.
Well, I only ask because it's in context of that earlier question I posed in regards to if we had to tap into the city's general fund to
Oh.
cover any unforeseen costs. And I know in review of the finances of this project, there is 10% contingency.
Mhm.
10% of
Yeah.
3.2 is a
Well,
real
this
hefty
is-
chunk. And I do agree with your logic in regards to the cycle that we're in right now. And I definitely agree with the point that contractors are hungry. We're always hungry when we go bid projects in the first quarter. We raise our markup, profit, overhead rates. Q3,
Yep.
4,
Mhm.
and then try to spend it all so we can write it off in December.
Yeah.
Start over again in January.
Well,
Okay.
that money has been appropriated already, so there's no problem with the reimbursement. It's
Right.
just the timing of the reimbursements.
Mhm.
Okay,
Other questions on things that have happened or information you want me to find out specifics on for next meeting?
In terms of the land acquisition process, everything has been sent out. Or I mean, it's being sent out, everything's been appraised. Is there a process, but is there we've sent everything out? You're gonna get a bunch of letters back from people, like I saw the letter, I read the letter, took me a couple times reading it to make sure I completely understood what it made sense. And then, so that's just an acknowledgement.
Correct.
That just says, we're gonna take your land one way or the other. Have a nice day. Here are your rights. No, but it also says, here are your rights. Here's the process. So all my point was just, are we going to follow up with a phone call with all of these people, or a visit, or an email, or, I mean, some of these, some people are not gonna get this process.
Right.
So the idea is, do we have a plan for calling everybody who?
As we kind of keep going through it and we start hearing back from more people, whether they give us their signed acknowledgement of receipt, or they want to set up a meeting and discuss, or if it's just crickets, then we will for sure reach out to the crickets if they have not already contacted us to make sure that it's a December 1st response deadline. And so from there, it does say what the owner's options are. If they want to get their own appraisal and things like that, and if they are good with the amount, then we can proceed through that.
So if it is crickets, who is actually calling?
Probably myself or Jenny.
I'm just curious to,
Do,
because
Usually I set up the meetings. I'll set up the meetings, and then that's about as much as I know on most of these things.
does the city have any negotiating wiggle room on the amount that you got for an appraisal?
I do not know. I don't know if that has been discussed or not. I do not know. I was not a part of the closed meeting when they got those original amounts. So I don't know if that was a topic then, or they just reviewed them. And if there is things that people want to negotiate, I'm sure Jenny and city council will address them at those
well,
times.
where does the engineer fall in here on the city's side to negotiate with the property owner if there's a debate? Is the engineer involved with this?
It was all
issue?
the appraisal. So
Not-
yeah,
Right.
the engineer doesn't,
doesn't-
they
not
wrote
involved with
like the legal descriptions and did
Uh-huh.
that work,
Yeah.
which was given then
Right.
to the city attorney.
knowing the civil engineers that I know, you might not want them talking.
A good point. Except it builds the exception, of course.
Okay, are there any other questions that we need to discuss tonight? Hopefully you'll resolve the two property owners' issues and
That probably,
move on.
the probably only thing is gonna be I mean, you know who's on that list.
Yep.
It's gonna be every side of the coin, if you will, some people are gonna go, whatever, and some people are gonna go, over my dead body.
Mhm.
And they're gonna go for the last gnat, for the last penny. But it should be interesting to see how it.
So,
how it
yeah,
goes.
I would anticipate that a couple of them will want to
yeah,
get
yeah,
their own
so
appraisal.
you've had no input concerns from the horse people that live on Lower Roy Lake Road?
I believe they're still waiting on their information.
And they were looking for the double fencing thing.
Yes,
Remember that?
yeah,
That was their big thing.
plus who knows what else.
I know, I just,
But this only addresses like the appraisal.
Right.
That's
Right.
all that the information is in there.
Okay. Only the
There's
appraisal.
no,
Mhm.
it just shows market value for
the
that.
people that are going to be arguing or possibly coming back with their own appraisals or whatever, how much of a risk is it that they might set our estimate back even further? Is that a risk? Or can we continue to move forward even if we have, is there a deadline where that all has to be settled and we can move forward, or?
I
I
think,
don't understand what that.
I think most likely that appraisal is going to be pretty close. There may be some extenuating circumstances in a few of these places. But, there's a book that these, yeah, I mean, I know appraisers too, and it's gonna be something like the number
They'll
that's
come
there.
close.
It's not gonna be a huge discrepancy. And part of that's with the reason for your contingency is, you have to, you'll have to, and then at the end, if you're really in a bad way, you probably could go back and get a few donations. I mean,
Yeah, the one thing that the city probably should be prepared to do is to move into condemnation if, negotiations break down by March or wherever, so
When-
that you can move on.
that letter that was sent out, if if you've been down the road, around the block before, you knew this was an acknowledgement letter that said, if you, reading between the lines, we're gonna take your land.
Yeah.
We're gonna buy it from you, you're gonna give it to us,
And then
or we're gonna take it.
And then the judge.
Have a
will
nice-
set the price.
Have a really nice
They
day.
donated it. Could they get a tax deduction for that?
Actually, there is some, even from the easement, there is some kind of a tax deduction. Because
The,
it gives it, you're giving up the use of that property.
Yeah.
It was interesting because in some work we did for Crow Wing County back when Dwayne Blank was the engineer. The county highways approach to the right of way, and anytime they upgraded a road, it typically went from a whole 66-foot right of way out to 100 feet or whatever, and they got everybody up and down the line. He basically started condemnation with every piece of property out there.
Right.
And then those that wanted to settle, it took it off the list, and it was just a straightforward process.
Mhm.
And I mean, I think that way nobody felt like they were being singled out.
Right, right. And also, you didn't have any delays because.
Oh, yeah, the process was underway and you could start construction because you actually had title to the property. You just didn't know what you were gonna have to pay for it. Which was the downside of this.
So the next time we would have like an open house or something to talk to the public about this would be probably sometime in the spring.
We haven't even talked about another open house, have we, Amber?
Help me understand what the point of an open house would be after the plan is complete.
And the fact that everybody has heard about this for years.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Most people are something between 75 and 80% clueless as to where this is
True.
going. when it's
I will
happening.
say the letter that I sent out to every house along at least the trail side of the route. I indicated that for future updates will be posted on the website, especially as we get closer into bidding. So I plan to continue to create kind of those newsletter things to keep people up to date should they want to be involved. Definitely something that I've been putting into the budget is more wayfinding signage, because that's gonna need to happen pretty quick too.
What kind of signage?
Wayfinding,
Wayfinding.
so like think you're coming out of the here to there, which way is what? Up, down.
Okay, never heard of that.
It's more expensive than directions.
I would suggest, I mean, I know the city has a policy of putting everything on their website, but believe me, not everybody looks at the city's website. I would suggest you consider in the spring, maybe an article in the Echo or even the Brainerd paper, because a lot of people read those. And, just kind of summarizing where we're at.
And yeah, I agree. I mean, the people on the trail are the people who are gonna know.
Well, they
more
know,
about everything
but I
else.
have
But-
all last summer, I have, I live in the Cove, there's 25 houses there, and then people keep coming to me and saying, well, what's happening? What's happening? Because they don't know, they're supposed to go to the website. I got a letter because I'm on this.
I know. And even though it just, I think it would be helpful because there's a little bit of skepticism, but is
There
this
is.
gonna happen?
Really
Yeah,
gonna happen?
When is this really gonna happen? How come, what's the big deal? What's going on? So you explain to them what the delays are. I just think the more, the more information, the better, and.
That's right. And
Absolutely.
if we do a press release, make sure it's on the days that the 2 days that it's going paper. 2 days that the dispatch comes out,
Wednesday and Saturday.
Wednesday and Saturday. The Pines, the Journal or Echo is on only one day, and that's Wednesday.
I agree with what you're saying. I do think that the next public, whether it's a meeting or a press release or whatever, needs to have a specific timeline and,
Right,
I mean.
we don't wanna do it early.
Oh, no.
We go
no.
back to this 4 years and few months that I started with this. And we had a public hearing and then we had another public hearing and we said, oh, this is gonna happen and that's gonna happen off in the future.
Mhm.
And that's why you're getting a lot of questions.
Oh, yeah.
is, where is
They're
it?
they're
What's happening?
curious,
I think we need to say, okay,
they're anxious, they want it.
in June,
Or to build
Contractor's
some
gonna
excitement
start.
about the trail again
Mhm.
too, because nothing's changed in years. I think it would be good for.
Just
go ahead.
first off, put on the agenda for next time, just to think, keep that alive, to have, and maybe when the bids are done and the timeline's established, we put
A
press
marketing
release
plan
out,
of some sort.
We invite everyone to our meeting, and
Well, Fairview
Bill will bring
Township has had
cookies.
some major spreads in the Brainerd paper.
oh, that's good.
Something we need to, I'll have on the agenda for the next meeting as well, is in January, we go through the process of indicating when all of our scheduled meetings are gonna be. And so think about, one, what the goals of this committee are. Previously, we have talked about when to kind of sunset this committee and start the transition over to parks. So what, this year, we've more or less met quarterly. And so thinking about what might be kind of our anticipated meeting schedule, it's kind of hard not knowing exactly when bidding is going to happen and things like that. But just something to think about over the next couple of weeks, kind of what the goals are that this committee would like to still accomplish, or and how that falls with a meeting schedule. And then, if, what, and when, well, not if, but when and what to transition to the Parks Commission. So that is all I have, unless you guys have other questions for me, to things to investigate.
Park Commission.
Yeah. Very good.
I think maybe you could think about. How could we be a benefit to you and the project? Once the bids are done, or once the first shovel is turned, is there something else that we can do to help you or to help the process? Because, I mean, we can insert ourselves in any way. I mean, there's, any way we want to do it, but I mean,
Previously, when I talked about it, I think if there's a reason that we need to meet, we can during construction. I can obviously send updates as we go. I think it would be important to have at least a final recap. And if there is something like a ribbon cutting ceremony, things like that, to maybe get our minds together and be involved in something like that. That's kind of how I see after bidding going. But I'd also like to know if, you guys have been at this a lot longer than I have. So if there's things that over the years that you guys have felt were important goals and things to accomplish through this committee, I'd like to know that as well.
after 5 years, I guarantee you, there's gonna be a party when this baby's done.
But it is possible that if the bidding is too high, that we may have to have an alternate plan of what are we
Yep.
gonna build? And I think that that will be important to, you know, when that decision happens, to make that very clear to the public, what's happening and why.
Yeah, I think at this time, there's still a lot of unknown things that it's.
Yeah.
I don't have any concrete answers for you guys, let alone
Right.
city council or the public. So yeah, we're definitely kind of in a holding pattern right now, and hopefully we will see some pretty good gains over the next couple of months. And then we can create a more solid plan going forward. That's my hope.
Okay.
You got a lot on
Anything
your
else?
plate, Amber.
Yeah, go check out the Parks Master Plan while you're at it. That's cool stuff too.
Sorry for being late. My honeydew list today was a project.
Well, thank you all for
Sweating to
accommodating.
get it done. So,
No problem. I'm glad you guys could all make this alternative schedule work so I can make it to daycare on time.
Okay, no problem. We've been there.
Yeah, okay.
Perfect. All right.
All right.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Do I have? a
Roger.
motion? Okay.
Thank
Second by
you.
Bill.